This show is based on Lakota Star knowledge, which the basic concept is reality begins within. This is the way the universe was created. Not just this universe, but all universes are created this way. In Lakota Star knowledge, it is about not just this universe, but others too. That there's been universes that existed before us, and there's going to be universes that will still be created. There is no limit to this. Yeah, there's, as soon as you try to put a limit to this, then you're really missing the point. Yeah, it's things happen. Yeah, and life happens, and it's up to you how you want to participate in that. And in our belief system, since reality begins within. This is also saying that your communication reflects what's inside of you, and we have a sacred symbol that shows that it's a reflection. Yeah, and so your communication influences the way the world is. So if you would like to influence a healthy world, you've got to be healthy. You have to take care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, because these four parts connect to each other. And where they connect is your sacred center. That's deep, deep within you. There are sacred pieces that are in there. And there is no skin color. Yeah, in that location, there's no skin color, there's no culture, there's no race, there's no language. It's where reality begins. So when you live this way, you're going to be communicating from there. And when you get like this, what you do is you take time to know yourself, and part of that process includes coming to peace with your past difficulties. That you face them, start learning from them, make the best of them, and as soon as you do that, the emotions that came with those experiences, and at first you'll feel them again, but as you learn, these emotions are heading out. You're not going to have any more emotional attachment to it. So once you learn from it, you get knowledge, wisdom, and peace. These are blessings, and you can use that to help others. Yeah, that's a blessing. So you're completing an experience is what you're doing. Then you see that it's not a bad thing. Yeah, you transform it into blessings. So then you learn that that's what you can do to any difficulty, even the ones that may come in the future. It's going to make you feel a certain way, so you have to acknowledge that emotion, express it without hurting anybody or anything, including yourself, and then take a step back and start looking at it from every angle and start learning from it and make the most of it, just like you did to your past. So then you start to see that this is not about good and bad, it's about learning. And then when you're doing this, this also helps you to enjoy blessings even more than you ever did before. Your favorite foods taste better. The things you like to do, they make you feel better than before. This is all about establishing a healthy communication within yourself between everything that's inside of you by taking care of your total self. Yeah? And so when you're this way, this shows in your communication. It reflects in your communication. And that's how you influence the world in a healthy way. And it even influences the weather. Yeah, it influences everything around you. So that's something to think about. Yeah? And when you do this, when you're learning from difficulties, and as those emotions leave, as you learn, you're developing emotionally, and this is also going to help you develop spiritually too. So your communication, is healthy. How you do and say things, and what you say and do, and how you listen, how you comprehend information coming inside of you, whether it's reading or just watching something or touching something or tasting something, smelling something, listening, how you do all that. That's all of that's communication. It's a two-way street. Yeah, it goes out and it comes into you as well. So when you live healthy, you do this in a healthy way too. And when people send you communication, you know how to handle it, no matter what it is. Even if somebody is saying shit, you know how to handle it. Yeah, and you don't let it get you down. It doesn't even bother you. Yeah, it might at first, but then you process it. Yeah, you treat it like a difficulty, then you let it go by, and doesn't do a damn thing to you after that. Because the natural law of generosity says that your communication, whatever that is that you send out, if it's healthy, it's going to come back healthier. Yeah. If it's unhealthy, it's going to come back unhealthier. It's going to be worse when it's because it's going to return to you 4 times as strong. So this is important to know. Yeah. So when you communicate healthy, you're influencing, good feelings around you, and at the same time, that's going to return to you and bless you somehow. Yeah. So it's learning from difficulties really helps you in this. So you learn that all emotions are important. They all serve a purpose. Yeah. Some of them are part of a learning experience, and others are part of enjoying blessings. And you express those emotions, and then you develop emotionally from learning from things, enjoying things, and then you develop spiritually. So when you look at this is not a religion. It's a way to live with nature. Yeah? You recognize that you're a part of nature, that you're not above it. Yeah? You cannot manipulate it. You might think you can, but in the end, no, you can't. The earth, may just shake her back and start all over again. And start all its stories talk about those things that happened before. Yeah. So this is basically what this show is based on. And like I said, in this way of looking at things, there's no good versus evil. In fact, Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least 3 perspectives to everything. And it's not about, which one is good. Yeah, no, it's about what can I learn from this, or maybe it can learn from me, or maybe it's something peaceful, or maybe it's something that confirms something, or maybe it's just nothing. You know what I mean? But the only way to find out is you got to take the time to check it out. And the only way to do that in the effective way, in the most effective way, is what I said earlier, to get to know yourself, come to peace with your past. Yeah, as soon as you learn how to do that, it's just natural. Whenever you experience something for the first time, you take the time to check it out. Yeah, so that's how living a healthy way is. This is the way of the ancestors. And the Lakota Star Knowledge stories say humans came on the earth in 5 locations, and at that time, there was only one continent. And these humans appear around the same time, and eventually they start interacting, yeah, meeting up with each other, and they settle in various parts of this continent. That those that settle, in areas that are closer to the sun, their skin gets darker. Yeah, their hair texture changes, their eye color adapts. That their bodies are adapting to that environment so they can live. Those that go north, their skin gets lighter, and their hair does too, and so do their eyes. So race, this comes in millions of years later. Yeah, we were not created as skin colors. Yeah, I always have to remember that we were not created as skin colors. That developed according to where our ancestral group settled in relation to the sun. Okay, so there's city Indians like to say that the medicine wheel, which has 4 colors, that they like to say that represents the 4 races of people. No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. We are not red. I look at myself right now. I'm not red. I'm brown. Yeah. I'm fluffy and like fry bread. That's not red. Yeah. And I'm living in Berlin, Germany. When I first came here, I was taking German language uh, lessons at a school, and there were people from all over the world in there. There was a gal from Korea, a gal from Malaysia, I think it was, and a gal from Thailand, and there was 4 Japanese girls and a girl from Taiwan. These were all Asian girls. And sometimes they would all sit together. None of them were yellow. In fact, they're different shades of brown, but they're not yellow. Yeah, absolutely not. This has to be understood that the 4 colors of the medicine wheel, those represent the directions. They don't represent skin color. Yeah, because reality begins within, and within is no skin color. Okay, that's the reason why. And so this is all basic foundation here. And another thing I forgot to mention was that um, when humans are come on the earth and start meeting each other from different groups, one thing they notice is that all their babies speak the same language. So that's how they figure they're the same species. Yeah, all the babies speak the same language. And through conflict or accidents or whatever, we realize we all bleed the same. And you have 3 groups of people in the same location, and one guy is climbing up a tree, and you know, and then somehow he gets caught upside down. So he's hanging upside down, dangling, and one leg's caught between 2 branches, and he's hey, and the others look at him and they watch him as he falls, and it's funny to see. So the people from the 3 groups start laughing. They all speak different languages, but they're different cultures, but they laugh. The same kind of things make us laugh, cry, get scared, get angry. We're the same species. We are not different from each other. Yeah, I really want to stress that because there's a dead Native American racist activist that wrote a book. He says in there that the Creator never meant people from different skin colors to intermarry, and when children are born in interracial marriages, that those children are deficient. That's racist. Yeah, that totally goes against Lakota Star knowledge way of thinking. And a lot of Indians today think like this. They're racist. They think that Indians are superior, and there's even non-Indians that think Indians are superior. We are not. We are human, just like everybody else. It's movies and books and that make us into these mystical fantasy kind of people, and actually we're just the same as everybody else. We're not any more special than anybody else. Yeah, there's good people and bad people in every skin color, every group, every organization. You're gonna find good and bad people. It's how they live. It's not the skin color. It's how they live their lives that defines if they're healthy or unhealthy. Okay, that's really has to be made known. That has to be understood. When you're listening to this show, that has to be understood. Yeah, that no matter where you go, yeah, you'll find healthy and unhealthy in every group. And please keep that in mind. So anyway, living this healthy way, uh, the point I really want to focus on is the emotional development. That learning from difficulties, we emotionally develop into healthy beings. Now, what some people do is they only like to feel one emotion, so then they'll do anything to just feel that one emotion. And whenever they experience something, and if that experience makes them feel a different emotion, right away they shut it off. Yeah? It's like it's a different faucet coming on. They want to shut it off right away. They turn their back to it. They ignore it. They deny that it's there. Yeah? Even though they feel it, they're denying it. And, they're trying to hide from it. They don't want to feel it. And they'll do anything to only feel that one emotion that they like. And this way of living, they become addictive in their thought process. And that can project into other things like substance addiction. Yeah? Addictions have a common denominator. It starts in the mind and the heart too. It starts in both places where they only want to feel one emotion. They only want to think one thing. And then they call this good. So anything else they call bad. So they lump everything into two groups. So if you disagree with them, then you're bad. You're wrong. Yeah? And they see themselves as the solution. So if you're not with them, then you're the problem. See? That's all two-sided. Everything is two-sided. And it's opposing. Those two sides are opposing. This is duality. Yeah? So if you trap an emotion and only want to feel that one emotion, you don't develop emotionally, which means you cannot develop spiritually either. And that's going to affect your mind. It's going to weaken your mind, and it's going to cause your body to get sick because these four parts are connected to each other. That's very crucial to know. Yeah? So this is what happens to people who are dualistic, and they'll do anything to justify this way. Yeah? Even to the point of creating complex belief systems in which there's a super good guy and a super evil guy. Yeah? And then they create these stories saying, well, if you follow us, after you die, you go to this super fantastical place. And if you're not with us, you go to this other place where you just are tortured through all time and eternity. Yeah? So it's a scare tactic either way. Yeah? So this is duality. Yeah? All this stuff is man-made, and they really do this to elevate themselves over those that they disagree with. And their argument is, if I can prove that you're wrong, and then you should join me. And if you still don't join me, then I will destroy you because you're an enemy. Yeah? And you're an enemy to my God, so I must destroy you. That is called duality. Yeah? They separate everything into two groups. Remember what I said earlier? Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least three concepts. And it's not about good and bad. It's about learning and living so you can love. Yeah? So this is how that works. So when you're following Lakota Star Knowledge concepts, whenever you experience something, you look for the three perspectives. Yeah? If there's more than three, you will see them. Yeah? But first look for three. And as soon as you do that, you start programming yourself to be more healthy in your thinking process. That you don't see things as good versus evil. You see things more of learning. Yeah? The difficulties, they're just experiences that need to be completed by you. And it's your choice. How do you want to complete that? Yeah? Sometimes you may need to ask for help. And that's fine. We're designed like that. We are designed to help one another. Okay? So, since Lakota Star Knowledge says that there's at least three perspectives to everything, that's going to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, at least. Yeah. So, dualistic people, Like I said, they only choose one emotion, one something, yeah? And then whatever the other stuff, they categorize it all together as the opposite, okay? So when Lakota Star Knowledge says there's at least three perspectives, what dualistic people do is they'll choose one and say that's the good one. The one that they like, they say that's the good one. And the other two they reject. So from that situation, they only accept one third of reality and they reject two thirds of it. And the longer they live this way, the less clarity they have. And remember, they're trapping an emotion at the same time. So they're not developing emotionally, they're not developing spiritually, they're becoming weak-minded, physically ill, and addictive, yeah, in their way of life. The longer they live like this, they lose clarity, and they don't see the fullness of reality. They don't see the full picture. It's like their whole vision is getting some kind of a, what do you call that? Cataracts, yeah, where they can't see. And this lays the groundwork for low self-esteem, low self-worth, emotional insecurity, and inferiority complexes. And people who are dualistic are either going to develop into a oppressor or a victim, or maybe both. So in some situations they're oppressive, in others they're more like a victim. They're going to attract the same kind of people because like attracts like. This is a universal law. Like attracts like. However you are, that's what you're going to attract. Yeah, I've seen a lot of things on Facebook where, some lady put up, I met Mr. Married, I met Mr. I still live with my mom, when am I going to meet Mr. Right? It's just, and it's like, hey, this is what you're attracting. So instead of blaming the men, look at yourself. There's something not right. Yeah. Then I saw another one. This Lakota girl from Rosebud wrote something on her wall saying, "Why is it that people with good hearts always attract bad guys?" She said. And I was like, that's total victim kind of talking, which means she's going to attract an oppressor. She's not healthy emotionally. See, this is the other thing about living a dualistic lifestyle. People only want to focus on one emotion, so then they believe that they must only use their hearts in their communication. And some instances, they only use their minds. Either way, though, they try to control others. They want to rise above others because they have low self-esteem, inferiority complexes. So they tear other people down that disagree with them or that they disagree with. That's an oppressor. Yeah. This is how they attract each other. This is the foundation of unhealthy relationships. Oppressors and victims naturally attract each other. They will find each other in a crowded room because they're on the same frequency. Yeah, they will find each other. So that shows you like attracts like. Yeah. So this girl from Rosebud, she's only using her heart. And Lakota Star Knowledge says, hey, you have a heart and you have a brain. Use them both. Because if you only use one or the other, that adds more fire to the addictive way of thinking when you're dualistic. If you just use your mind or if you just use your heart only, alone, that only makes you more addictive. Yeah? I mean, you're more addicted, I should say. So, Lakota Star Knowledge says you have to use both. Yeah, you have to use both the mind and the heart together. And it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes you'll start with your mind and then bring in your heart. Or sometimes it'll be the other way around. But in the end, you still use both parts. Yeah? You look at the whole picture, not just the part that you like. Dualistic people just look at the part that they like. People who live this Lakota Star Knowledge concepts, they look at the whole picture. Because the whole, everything defines that picture. It defines what it is. It defines a concept. It defines an idea or life. But dualistic people just choose the part they like and only focus on that. So they don't even see the full picture. They don't want to see the full picture. In some cases, they're unable to because they're so addicted in this twisted way of only wanting to feel one emotion. Yeah? So this is the way it is in Lakota Star Knowledge. These are the kind of concepts it talks about. This is really, really old stuff. This information comes from a time before Lakota ceremonies. Yeah? It comes from a time before people started calling themselves Lakota. This comes from a time when people call themselves Ikje Oyate, which means the human nation. Yeah, that's how that goes. So what I'm talking about is really, really ancient stuff. Back in the late 1800s, when we were placed on reservations, they were prison camps in the beginning. And this is a situation where we couldn't leave, we were not allowed to hunt. Our knives and guns were taken from us, and we were only allowed to eat whatever the American government gave to us, which was really no good food. The quality of the food was okay when it left places like Chicago and stuff like that, but once it got to some of these train stations between there and the reservation, a lot of these handlers would sell it, and then they would buy old food and put that in there instead, and these middlemen would make a lot of money. Yeah. So what we got on the reservation was bullshit food. Yeah, it was really no good. And we ended up getting all kinds of diseases like heart diseases, hypertension, diabetes, things like that. And then at the same time, our language and ceremonies were declared illegal by the United States. So we were hit physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Soon after that, our minds became weak. And these, as I said earlier, these are the four parts of the self. So with the four parts of the self being sick, we lost our connection to our sacred center. So we started to focus on communicating away from that. And then the priests came from the various churches, and they learned our ways and said that since our ways conflict with the Bible, that our ways are evil, that they come from Satan. They come from the devil. So in our weakened states, we slowly began to accept that. Now, another thing is that there were some Lakota people that didn't want to accept that. They wanted to hang on to the traditional Lakota Star Knowledge ways. And if they revolted, they were sent to a mental hospital in Canton, South Dakota, which was set up for all reluctant Indians in America that did not want to become Christianized. They were sent there. And these church priests also committed the medicine men, medicine women, holy men, holy women. They committed all of them to these mental asylums too. This way, the people would not go to them for help, that they would come to the churches. They wanted the Indian people to only go to the priests and not their traditional healers. So they sent the healers to this mental asylum to die. And if you are radical, you were sent there to die too. Yeah. So while this is happening, the priests are saying to the Indian people, if you believe our way, we will help your children. And so, there was a very, very dire straits time. And so a lot of Indians became Christians because of that. Like I said, we were weak-minded too at that point. And those who stuck it out, there were people who refused to accept Christianity, but they went to church anyway. What they were doing was they were putting up a candy store front. On the outside, they were acting like good little Christian Indians, but on the inside, they weren't. They were star knowledge people. Yeah? They did this because they didn't want to get sent to that mental asylum to die. That's sad, isn't it? But that's part of what happened back then. And it's because of these people who maintained this knowledge in secret. Thanks to them, they passed it down, to certain people like me, and we still have this knowledge. And I have this show, and I'm sharing it with you. Because this regards the sacred center. And we all have that. Yeah, this is not a Lakota thing. This is a Ikje Oyate thing. Ikje Oyate means human being. When you live this way, as I said in the beginning, you communicate as a human, not as a Lakota, not as a German, or a Japanese, or an African. You communicate as a human. Yeah? That's really important to know. So, that's how it was back then. Yeah? Now remember I said that the priest said to the Indians, we will help your children. So, they took the children away from the parents, sent them to boarding school hundreds of miles away, where these children were tortured to speak only English and learn the civilized Christian way. If they spoke about home, they were tortured. These schools didn't do background checks in those days. Yeah, the pay was really low, so they got really no good teachers in these schools. A lot of these teachers were sadistic. They got sexual pleasure from torturing people. And here, this is like summer holiday camp for them. And the same thing for perverts. A lot of perverts now had their pick of the litter. And they could get away with it. That's what happened. A lot of these children were murdered. They were killed. They were raped. They were molested. And there's a lot of unmarked graves near these schools. Not all these children are accounted for. So, those who made it through, what they learned was whatever they saw. Because a lot of these children never went back home. They were told by the priests that their families had died and that there was nobody there. And that broke their hearts. This is why some of these children, they were so sad they couldn't eat. And they ended up starving themselves to death. And those who made it through, like I said, they didn't really survive because they were not able to process all these emotional traumas that they experienced. They didn't know how, because the only adults that were around them were these unhealthy, abusive people, teachers, dorm matrons, cooks, janitors, priests. They were all unhealthy to them. That's all they knew. They learned how to become victims, and they learned how to become abusers to those who they considered weaker than themselves. So they didn't really survive. A lot of these children that made it through these schools, they had a lot of traumas that they didn't know how to deal with because all they saw was abuse. That's what they learned. There was no adult healthy role models to emulate. Remember I said these children were told that their families were all dead. So they didn't go back during summer holiday. They just stayed at these schools and worked. So when they left these schools, they tried to live in mainstream America. Nobody accepted them. They would say, you're a heathen. You're a dirty Indian. So they couldn't even get jobs off the reservation. And when they went back to the reservation, to their people, they ran into more problems. Many, many times they were not even accepted by their own people because their own people were saying, you're too white. You act like a white man. So they're caught in between. So a lot of them turned to alcohol to try to hide all of it, to try to forget everything. They turned to alcohol and then later drugs. There were some who tried to make it. They married each other because they knew each other went through the same thing. And they didn't want their children to go through what they went through. So they didn't teach them the language. They didn't teach them the culture. Those children, the children of these first generation boarding school people, those children are today's elders. When they were born, they didn't learn the language. They didn't learn Lakota Star knowledge. They never got the opportunity to. When you look at an old person on the reservation today, they're not the connection to the ancient past. No, they were born in a Christian background at a time when the reservations were strongly Christian. So this is what happened. That's a native experience that a lot of people don't realize. This is what happened all over America and Canada too. So the next generation, they are sent to boarding school too. No choice. It's a little bit better, but they're still abused. They're still getting treated really no good. And so they grow up, have children, and they don't teach their children anything. What can they teach them? They don't know anything concerning their own language. This is why today most people cannot speak their own language, and what little cultural information they know is Christianized, meaning it's dualistic, and it's not the original ancient form. Okay, so the first generation of Indian kids that were sent to boarding school, since all around them were unhealthy adults who did nothing but abuse them, they didn't receive healthy parenting. They missed things that they should have learned about life. So they're lacking emotional development. So when they grow up, and those who make it through these boarding schools and then they have children, those children are also lacking that emotional support, that emotional development, because the parents don't know how to do it. Yeah, all they knew and all they learned was abuse. All they experienced in these schools was abuse. So they have a hard time trying to be a healthy parent. So they do the best that they can. But the children still are not receiving the proper emotional development, the experiences that healthy children should receive from healthy parents. They're still missing that. And so when that second generation grows up, they know even less concerning healthy parenting. And so their children receive even less. And every time this happens, the next generation becomes more dualistic than the previous one. So let me try to say that again. The first generation boarding school kids, they didn't receive proper parenting skills. So when they have children, their children are not receiving healthy training that they should be receiving. They're receiving even less than their parents. Now that second generation, when they grow up, see, they know even less. So when they have children, those children are receiving even less, and it gets worse with each generation, which also means that the less healthy emotional development they receive, the more dualistic they become. So with each generation is more becoming emotionally underdeveloped, they're also becoming more dualistic. So today, it's a huge mess on the reservation. We're incredibly, as a whole, we're incredibly underdeveloped emotionally, and we are incredibly dualistic. We're quick to attack each other. We're quick to pull each other down. We're just like the rest of the civilized, dualistic world. Notice I didn't say white man, because this is all over the world. It's not just among white countries. It's all over the world. Wherever there is a dualistic ideology, where one gender is considered less than and property of the other gender, you're going to have incredibly underdeveloped emotional people, which equals incredibly dualistic people. And that is unhealthy. So that started by the time of the late 1800s on the reservation.